So let's talk about how to manage DNS zone records. Now, we'll start by looking at commands that are available to manage DNS servers in general. So the module that we have is DNS server. So to find the available commands, it would be get command dash module DNS server. We're going to go ahead and pipe that to more because there's a bunch of them. And so here are all of our commandlets and functions and everything else to manage DNS. And you can see we've got page after page after page of them. So remember, to find information about our DNS server, then we could also specify, or to figure out how to retrieve information from our DNS server, we know that the verb for those would be get. So we could do dash verb get and filter that one page at a time. And this is going to be just our commands to get information about our DNS server. Now you're going to see get DNS server URLs, get DNS server, server cache, client, subnet, all right, through a whole bunch of different things. Now there's a couple of them that I want to highlight for you. And that's going to be this one right here, get DNS server zone, and that's going to discover our available zones. And then get DNS server resource record is going to discover our resource records for those particular zones. So let me show you how this works. Let's do get DNS server zone. And that will show me the zones I have available. And here's going to give me the zone name, the zone type, is it auto-created, is it Active Directory integrated, and is it a reverse lookup zone. So most of these were automatically created. So these three here were automatically created. These two, the msdcs.example.local and example.local, both of these were created when we made this server a domain controller, because that required DNS records. And so that's why these were created. They didn't auto-create, but they created sort of automatically when we created Active Directory. And so they're DNS integrated and they're not reverse lookups. Okay, so that shows me which zones I have. Now to get my zone records, that would be get DNS server resource record. And then I need to specify the zone name, which is going to be example.local, because I want to look specifically at our example.local here. And that's going to show me all of my records. So it'll show me the host name for the record type, is it an A record, just standard address record, an NS record, a start of authority record, a service record, or an MX record, or a CNAME record. None of those do we have currently active, since the only thing we have here are the things that were created automatically when we did Active Directory. And then we have the timestamp on them, the time to live, and then the record data, which shows what it actually resolves to. Okay, now if I want to filter that down, let me do a get help on get DNS server resource record, one page at a time. And that's going to show us our other options. So we can set the zone name, which is a positional parameter. We can look for a specific name. We can look for a specific type. We can look for them on specific computer names, or, well, you get the idea. We have a bunch of different options. Right here, we have a -RR type. And notice right here when we do the type, it's looking for a number. Here under RR type, which is resource record type, you'll see within these curly brackets is the list of all the available resource record types that we have. So I could do get DNS server resource record. Zone name would be example.local, and then specify an RR or resource record type of A. And that should show me just my, and it didn't, because I typed example-local, not example.local. There we go. And that'll show me just my A records. So that's how I can view what I currently have available. All right, what if I wanted to manage one of these server resource records? So for that, I'm going to get command, and I'm going to specify I want the module DNS server, and then I want to look specifically at the noun DNS, DNS server resource record. And this is going to give me my cmdlets, or in this case functions, but they're going to work the same way, for managing the DNS server resource records. So I have add, which is going to add a new one, get, which we've already looked at, that displays them, remove, which, well, obviously gets rid of them, and set, which modifies an existing one. So we have add instead of new, but other than that, we're kind of similar to the structure that we have for working with AD users, right? So we have an add DNS server resource record, get, remove, set, changes what's a record that's already in existence. So if I wanted to add a server resource record, let me run a get help so you can see how this works. I want to get help on add DNS server resource record. And I should have piped that through more. So let's do that real quick to view it one page at a time. All right. So we can add DNS server resource record. Notice we have to set the zone name because we have to know what to add it to. And then this is done using an input object. This one is done using a name. So I can specify the name, and then that name is going to be string. Now I have to specify the name, and I have to specify the zone. They're positional parameters, so I don't necessarily have to type -zone name or -name, although in a script it might be kind of helpful. But then here you have -x25, -wks, dash wins r dash wins. All right, all of these are the different types of DNS resource records. And so as I space down through here, you'll see a dash text, dash TLSA, and you're going to see a separate one of these for just about everything, dash SRV, RT, RP, PTR, NS, MX, ISDN, HSInfo, DNAME. All right, you get the idea. We have pretty much every different type of record we can specify by putting in the parameters. So finally we get down here to a -A record where we specify just -A. And then for all of them, we typically have to put in an IP address. Now notice right here we have to specify the IPv4 address. If it's a quad A record, we'd have to specify the IPv6 address. If it's a CNAME record, we'd have to specify the host name alias. So each different each different type of record is going to require something specific for that particular type of record. So let me show you how this will work with creating an A record. So let's create an new record. So it's add a DNS server resource record. I'm going to go ahead and put in the parameters. Zone name is going to be example.local, and I have a tendency to do zone instead of zone name, and it trips me up every time. Name, I'm going to call this one sample. And I only have to put in the host name. So it's going to be, it's going to append the example.local to the host name here. I'm going to make it an A record, so I'm going to do -A, and then I have to set an IPv4 address. And for that, I'm just going to pick a random address, 10.1.1.15. Okay, and then that creates my record for me in my example.local. So to confirm that, I can do get DNS server resource record for the zone name example.local. And that's going to show me all of them. Down at the bottom right here is my sample that I just created. It's an A record, type 1, which is the number identifier for it. Since I don't remember all those off the top of my head, I'll tend to use the record type. And then the record data is what it resolves to. So there we go. That's all we have to do to get to create it. Now to get rid of it, it's the same thing in reverse. It's remove, and actually let's do a get help on this one real quick. Get help, remove DNS server resource. There we go. That looks better. Record, and we're going to pipe that to more. All right. So we're going to remove DNS server resource record. And again, we can set it using an input object, which would mean I would get the resource record and then pipe that to remove the resource record, or something to that effect. I'm passing objects back and forth. If I'm going to specify the name, then I'm going to do one of these options here. And so I have remove DNS server resource record, set zone name, set the type, which again is going to be a numeric type, or I can do down here -rr type, and I can specify any name within this list. So easiest way to do it is going to be this. Remove DNS server resource record. Now this time I'm going to, since they're positional parameters, I'm not going to set the zone name and the name. I'm just going to type it in. So example.local, and I want to remove sample. And it's going to be an RR type of A. And it asks me to confirm, are you sure you want to do this? Yes, I do. So let me once again get DNS server resource record for the zone example.local. And now you'll notice it's not there. Okay. So far we have looked at commands in order or to manage DNS. We have created a resource record, and we have removed a resource record. Now, I only did A records as in the example, but I showed you in the help where you can go through and see all the other different types of records and how you can manage them. So, hopefully that makes sense, and you can start adding and removing DNS server resource records. Now, you're going to work with records way more often than you're going to work with creating DNS zones. A zone is something we'll create when we do a major expansion of our network. So we're going to add a whole other namespace to our network. But most of what we do is going to be working with resource records within a zone. And if we're in a small network, we're probably going to be running only one, maybe two zones if we're running an external zone that we are personally managing. And that's only going to be the case if we are hosting locally, website, email, something like that. If we're not doing that, then the vast majority of what we're going to be doing is going to be managing resource records within our local AD domain. Now, one other thing to remind you of, the domain or the DNS zone that's created from Active Directory allows automatic updating, which means Windows clients and Windows servers, when they're set to use this DNS server as their DNS server, will automatically add their names and IP addresses. So we don't have to manage that. The only time we're managing DNS server resource records is if we are specifying a permanent record that is going to be different from a record for a server or a workstation. Okay, so hopefully that gives you enough to get you started managing DNS from PowerShell.